Well, tonight I thought we would talk about how to store our food. And I kind of like thought of that question yesterday when I was asking it in the group. And it always makes me think of Multiplicity. Have you guys seen the movie Multiplicity? Yeah, Chelsea has. I can't see you the other two. So I
I
don't know
think
if you're nodding, but huh?
I think so.
Yeah. It has Michael Keaton
Yeah.
in it, and he's hysterical. Well, there's like the premise of the movie is that he clones himself, so that he has more time to like do the things that he likes to do. And so he's like helping out around the house and like he's working, but then like his clone is helping out around the house, um, so that he can take a vacation. And then like, but it ends up being like he still has all this stuff to do and he still can't get anything done. And so anyway, he ends up cloning himself twice, and then his clones clone one of them. And so that comes out with he says, you know, when you make a copy of a copy and it's just not quite as sharp as and it's like this like mentally handicapped clone. So funny. But anyway, it's the funniest movie ever. If you haven't, Isla, if you have not seen this movie, you need to see this movie. But I digress. There's a part in the movie where the like neat and tidy clone is in the kitchen and he had just cooked dinner and he's putting it away, and he's like his wife is like putting the in a Tupperware or something like that, and he stops her and he tells her like, no, you have to like you have to wrap it up, and like I like to use tinfoil. And then he says like tuck tuck fold TTF, tuck tuck fold. That's how I like to do it. That's how I remember it. And every time I think about, and he says, and why? Because air is the enemy. And it's just like every time I put food away, it makes me think of this scene. This such a just stupid scene in this movie, but it makes me laugh every time. But obviously, like I can't find all like random scenes in this movie to put on the Facebook page, so I put the um the silly clown video that popped up. But anyway, so that's a really significant, and it sticks in my brain. The air is the enemy part of like storing food. So when I meal prep, when I do like a big meal prep, one of the most important things that I do is one, I like to divide things up into individual serving sizes, because if I don't, and I'm opening up the bigger container of whatever it is to take servings out every night, I'm exposing it to air. And every time you expose your food to air, it introduces like things like that will grow mold and bacteria. And so putting it in like right after you cook it, putting it in individual, even if you're not like making a full meal and putting it in a box, if you put it in individual baggies and you squeeze all the air out, if you put it in like um when I was counting macros, I just had like a assembly line of weighed a serving size into each bag. That way I could just grab one out and I knew like this is 5 ounces. And so taking that little bit of extra effort on the front end, one will make your food last much longer, um, at least a week, sometimes longer. And if you're putting it in a box, this is something that I found and I kind of learned accidentally. If you put it in the box in a whole meal, like assembled meal, and put the lid on while it's still hot or warm, as it cools, it will like almost suction itself down. I don't know if you've ever canned or if you've ever done any kind of like um preserving of meat of foods. But when you put the food in the mason jar and you screw it down tight, and you heat it up, and then you screw the lid on, and then as it cools, the little top will like pop down, and then it's sealed, and that's what seals it and preserves it. And so you can do a similar thing with your containers and put your lid on when it's warm, and shut it, and then as it cools it will almost like seal itself, and like there won't be as much air in there, and it will last a really long time. um like, and I never ever recommend that people eat something longer than a week that's been in the fridge. However, I do it all the time. not all the time, but if I have leftover food and I open it up to smell it, I've been known to eat something even 2 weeks later. And it's not like I have not gotten sick. I have not, and like I said, I would never recommend that somebody eat something beyond a week, but this is a way to like make things last at least a week. But always making sure that you're getting all the air out of whatever it is. Individually bagging or boxing things really, really helps too, and avoiding air exposure as much as possible. So like if I cut an avocado, like we were just talking about avocados, if I cut out an avocado and I only use half of the avocado, I will put the other half in a baggie and I will suck the air out of it and then zip it closed and like vacuum seal that avocado, and it barely turns brown at all. And so just little tricks like that, it's really, really important to try to get as much air out of whatever containers you're utilizing as you can. So that was my first thing that I wanted to talk about. Does anybody have any questions about that? About like storing foods or how long, or, what about this kind of food? Anything? No.
My food doesn't last that long.
Because it gets eaten.
Yeah, these fatties up in here eat.
That's good though. That's good. I don't do the individual boxes as much, but I do bag things individually. But I used to, and I did it this week, and it made me kind of want to get back to it because the couple of boxes that were left over, I meal prepped for a friend of mine. She had surgery. And so I just put everything in already like meals in boxes so that they could just stick them in the microwave and eat, because her husband doesn't really cook and she's, down. And so anyway, I did that, and then I had, I was like, I'll make each of them 4 meals, and then whatever's left, I'll just put it in boxes for us. And then it was so nice to be able to take a box and stick it in the microwave, and then not even scoop anything out, not put anything together. Like, I was like, man, I need to do this more, because it's really not that hard. And I've gotten away from it because I'm home all the time. But man, even if I save myself 15 minutes, that's 15 minutes. I could be sitting on my butt eating quietly. So yes. Okay. So that is oh, sorry, Chelsea, you just unmuted. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm not as good about like pre-portioning, but when I have leftover food from meals, I tend to put it on plates. Maybe it's just because we moved and we don't have like as much Tupperware anymore, but even just like pre-portioning plates, that way you don't have to like open up 4 containers of whatever to like put together a meal. Like I find, like you said, like an easily microwavable plate is much better than, like, I'm less motivated to make a lunch, but if I'm taking a leftover plate, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I don't have an excuse because it's already on a plate. All I have to do is take it with me to work, put it in the microwave it, and then I don't know, then I don't have to make a lunch and I don't have an excuse to like go out to eat.
Yeah. Something else too, Natika, that might help, and I don't know if you do this already and it's not helpful at all, but when I pre-portion the individual serving sizes, it lasts longer. So like, for example, goldfish. This is just goldfish, but I noticed the snacky things more. Like, and I don't buy them like that often, but when I was making my son lunches, or in the summertime, I would buy like the big giant carton of goldfish. Like, the one that looks like a milk carton, but it's like 5 times the size of a milk carton. And if I left that milk carton on the counter undivided, that milk carton would last like 3 days. Between my husband and Emmett pouring cereal bowls full of goldfish and then eating them, it was just gone. But if I took, and it probably took me 20 minutes, but still, if I took 20 minutes and sat there and measured a half a cup serving into each sandwich baggie and put them in the cabinet, they were less like, even if Joey grabbed two, they're still only eating a cup's worth at a time, and it lasts like a week and a half. So maybe dividing up like your meat and your vegetables into bags, or like putting them into meals so that they could take one meal out and microwave it instead of assembling their own plate where they take, because I know that that was something that used to they do to you, is where they'll go in and take like a scoop of this, a scoop of this, a scoop of this, and like have a giant plate. But if you make them a plate or make individual plates, and it's a little bit more work, it's a pain in the butt, but it might last the whole week instead of a couple of days, and then you might not be as pissed about it.
That is definitely a thing. Definitely a thing.
Yeah, I'm weird about my food too. Like, I don't want, if I go in there and I'm expecting to see my food and then I have to fix something else because somebody ate it, it makes me real mad. And I don't have near as many people in my house. But maybe try that. It's a little extra work, but if it could save you time in the long run and money and frustration, and then you know that your food will be in there. And you can always put sticky notes on yours, like, this is Natika's 5 dinners for the week or whatever it is. That way they can have whatever else is in there, but those 5 are yours, don't touch them. So that is my tip for that. And let me know if you try it. I also wanted to talk about keeping produce and meat fresh longer. So meat, we can't do a whole lot about, but like if we take meat, if meat isn't going to last till the end of the week, we know that we're not going to cook it before blah, blah, blah. I'll stick it in the freezer. I put myself sticky note, like the sticky note thing. I put myself sticky notes on the door. Like if I know that the next morning I have to take it out of the freezer before, so that it'll defrost before bed or before dinner time, I put a sticky note on the door so I can't leave the house before I take the pork chops out of the freezer or whatever it is. And so, but once your meat is completely defrosted, it has to be cooked within 24 hours or it'll go bad. And that's true of like, if you buy meat at the grocery store that accidentally was frozen, like, I don't know if you've ever been to like the refrigerator section where the meat is and it gets like shoved to the back and it's like too cold and it freezes. If you take that meat home and it's frozen and it defrosts, it will go bad within 24 hours. So that's a lesson I had to learn the hard way a couple of times. I also look at the sell by date versus like the user freeze date because they're different. Like sell by date, you still have a few days. User freeze by date, that's the date that it's going to turn if you don't freeze it or use it. Now sometimes I'll fudge it like a day and I'll do the sniff test, but like I'm real weird about meat because my dad had E. coli poisoning when I was a kid, and so I'm super weird about meat germs. What else? But
Hey, Lauren,
okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Chelsea. No, you go.
I was just gonna ask, like, as long as you cook it by that date, like say you have like a package of chicken, you could still eat off of it for a couple of days once it's cooked, right?
Yes. So once you cook that meat, then it can be good for another, up to a week, really, if you store it like we were just talking about, like where you're eliminating the exposure to air. I've noticed that like I can get cooked meat to last me at least a week if I keep as much exposure to air down as possible. But it does go bad faster if I put it all in like a gallon size bag and I have to open it every day. It lasts way less, like maybe 3 or 4 days instead of a whole week or maybe 10 days. And so also I like to individually bag things in freezer bags right off the bat, so that if I don't use them within a week, and I think like shredded chicken, if I've got bags full of shredded chicken in my fridge and I know that like these are getting ready to go bad, but I've got like 4 or 5 bags left, I can immediately stick them in the freezer. and they're in freezer bags. And I kind of like mush them down and lay them flat so that they stack. But I always start meat, especially in freezer bags. Now like fruits and veggies, I don't freeze those. So I just put them in sandwich baggies. But yeah, I like to use freezer bags when I'm storing my meat, because that way I can stick it in the freezer easily without transferring it. But also if you have meat that has like partially defrosted, but is still a little frozen in the middle, you can refreeze that meat. It's okay to do that, but you're not supposed to refreeze meat that has defrosted completely. So if the meat has defrosted completely, you have to cook it within 24 hours and it cannot be refrozen. If you start to defrost it and you change your mind and it's not quite defrosted yet, it can go back in the freezer. And these are all things that I learned when I was meal prepping for other people, because I was worried about like making people sick. And so like these are all legit hacks. And then the past the week, that's just like personal preference. Past a week, I do the sniff test because I hate throwing away food, especially if it's meal prepped and it's good. I'll eat it. If it smells a little off, I throw it away though. Like I don't play with stuff that smells like, if I open it and I'm like, oh, then just throw it away. Because this is probably not good anymore. And then produce. Okay, so I know I've said this like a million times, so I'm gonna say it again because it's worth repeating. When you bring home your produce, wash it in a vinegar and water solution. It doesn't take a lot of white vinegar. I just use the cheap, like I get the giant gallon of white vinegar that's like $1.50. And you just like, you can either I like to wash out my sink and use my sink, because then I can fill it and splash like a quarter cup of vinegar in the full sink and wash several different vegetables and fruits in that sink before I drain it. But you can also use a bowl. Like if you don't want to put like produce in your sink, get a really big bowl, fill it with cool water and splash. I just like splash it. It's probably like 2 tablespoons or something. It's not a lot of vinegar into the water. Dump all the fruits and veggies into it, rinse them around. And if they're soft, like if they're berries, you don't want them to sit for very long because the vinegar will kind of eat away at them. But if they're hard, if they're like carrots or potatoes or celery or, things like that, those things can sit in the water much longer without being damaged. And it keeps your fruits and veggies from getting moldy, and it makes them last so much longer. Like I can get my strawberries. If I wash my strawberries the day that I get them in this vinegar solution and like just drain them and put them in either a bag or a bowl, they'll be good for at least a week, sometimes longer if they're really good and fresh. So I always wash my fruits and veggies in vinegar solution, not just because like I don't know who touched them and like I don't know what's on them, because I don't buy all organic produce, but also because of whatever the bacteria and germs that are on them deteriorate them faster. And I only grocery shop once a week, so I'm not playing around with like, I don't want my produce to turn and go get gross before I even get to eat it. And this has solved that problem for me like tons of times. Also, if you have like a grocery store that does the green bags in the produce section, those things are bomb. Like store your fruits and veggies in the green bags, because they like, it has whatever that material is that lets them like breathe out their gases. The gases that get trapped inside plastic, they ripen the fruit faster, and so it'll get like mushy and gross if you let it sit in like the plastic baggies, but not the green ones. The green ones are special. I don't know what they're made out of, but they're magic. And that's all I got tonight, guys. You got any questions about food storage or cooking things? Oh, Joey got some new spices for us while we were away. It was one's called special shit and one's called chicken shit. And one's called bullshit. I was like, what was the other one? Bullshit. It's for red meat.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, they're hilarious. Actually, no, I don't think he bought chicken shit. I think he saw it, but he got special shit and bullshit. So I'm excited to try them.
You haven't tried them yet?
Mm-mm. He put them on his eggs this morning, but I hadn't tried it yet.
Let me know. I like the names.
Yeah, they're funny. They had them in like a little kitchen store. I think you can order them.
Lauren, what about eggs? Like boiled eggs, and when you bake them, how long do they hold?
Good question. Okay, so for me, I hard boil eggs and I leave them in the shell when they're hard boiled. If you take them out of the shell, they won't last as long. They'll get kind of slimy. But if you leave them in the shell in the refrigerator, I just store them in a bowl. Because I make a lot. I make like 30 eggs at a time because my husband eats 6 egg whites for lunch as his protein. And so I make the hard boiled eggs and I put them in a bowl in the fridge and they stay good for, I would say I'd eat them 10 days later. A solid week for sure in the shell. One day out of the shell. If you peel them, like I peeled his tonight for his lunch tomorrow because he's leaving early and I didn't think I would have time in the morning to fix his lunch. So I peeled them tonight, but I wouldn't peel them and like prep bags of them. Even if I got all the air out of it, I wouldn't do that because they get kind of slimy and gross. But that's a really good question. And did you say the egg bake too? Egg bake, if you put it in containers or baggies, the same as what we were talking about at the beginning, that will last at least a week as well. I have stored it in the fridge before in the 13x9 pan with a lid on it. And it's like iffy by the end of the week if I do that because I'm opening the lid. Plus it won't get as dried out because sometimes those egg bakes will kind of dry out when they're exposed to too much air the longer that they sit. And so, yeah, in individual containers, at least a week. Good question. Anybody else? No? All right, my lovelies. Let me see your beautiful faces. Tika's gonna sit up. There she is. So pretty. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, cheese. You guys hear my doggy crying? What? Yeah, let me show you. See her? That's too dark. It's too dark. Anyway, all right, loves. Everybody have a fantastic rest of your week. Thanks for joining me on the food call. Talk to you guys soon. And I'm going to see you really soon.
Hey, thanks, Lauren.
Bye, guys.